Today, Mum, I want to talk to you about the importance of strength and how that evolved from the gym setting to being at home. I've got a question to ask you. The first question I'm going to ask you is, what is the heaviest thing that you lift in everyday life? It might be your shopping bags, 10 kilos each bag. It might be a little toddler on your side, weighing 15 kilos. It might be a washing basket that you need to deadlift to put up onto a bench. Okay, these are all things that we lift every single day. And chances are the weight range that you're lifting in is between that 10, 15, maybe 20 kilos, sometimes even 30 kilo range. Now that's all well and good. You might be very active and you might be lifting those things all the time. You might not be active and you may only need to lift those things sporadically. Regardless of where you fall on that spectrum, the principle is that you only maximally lift between 20 to 30 kilos in everyday life. So when required to lift 20, 25, 30 kilos, the maximum lift, your potential, I'll reword that. The percentage of your max that you are lifting is 100%. Okay, so let me break that down for you. The most you lift in everyday life is 20 to 30 kilos. And when you go to lift that 20 to 30 kilos, then that would be considered your capacity, your 100% of your capacity. Now, the second question I'm going to ask you is, how risky is it only being capable to lift 20 to 30 kilos and having to lift 20 to 30 kilos? Would that be high risk or would that be low risk? I'd consider that high risk, because if all you lifted was that 20 to 30 kilos and then you were required to lift that 20 to 30 kilos, then there's a high chance that you're going to pull a muscle, slip a disc, or have a twinge or some kind of injury that incapacitates you somewhat. Now, the thing with age is, as we get older, we lose that capacity. The things around the house and things in everyday life get harder and harder to move, unless we are actively trying to improve our strength. Now, this is where the gym comes in. A lot of mums will say, Pete, I'm not interested in lifting heavy weights. Until I pose these scenarios to them. Now, knowing what we've just discussed, let's imagine you've come into the gym and over a 12, 24, even 52-week period, you've gradually added 1 to 2 kilos of maximal strength to your capacity. Over a 52-week period, you've gone from lifting at best 30 kilos around the house to lifting, say, 60 kilos in the gym. At what percentage of your max should you be required to use when you're posed with those situations in everyday life, in that circumstance? At most, maybe 50%. So all of a sudden, you've, in a controlled environment, improved your strength. Your strength is a lot higher than it was before. And now, working around the house, working in everyday life, in the backyard or wherever it might be, playing with the kids is now, well, it's now much, much easier, okay? You're working at half what you were before. This can even be extrapolated to extremities where people literally lose their strength to move their body. So in my mind, when it comes to strength is really the fountain of youth. If you think of old age equals fragility, anti-strength, or weakness. So for us to be strong, healthy, and young as possible, for as long as possible, we need to be actively improving our strength, okay? Now, you may say, Pete, yeah, that's great. I could probably lift, what's to say, if I can lift 60 kilos in a rack that's supported on a barbell like you see in the distance there. What's that to say that lifting an odd object or lifting something in an awkward position won't be harder? How is that over there going to help me lift bags of rice or washing baskets or toddlers, right, that are floppy and screaming and flailing all over the place? That's where we have the evolution of strength, right? So if you think of a barbell as a very steady and ergonomic object, something that makes lifting really easy, then you start to evolve from there to something like a kettlebell. Okay, the kettlebell is still quite easy and ergonomic for lifting. It's got a handle, but you can see how the weight is in the base now. Okay, and then if we evolve that even more, we have what we call dead balls in the gym. Now, this is a dead ball, which is very hard to lift. Okay, it is not ergonomic at all, and it's almost akin to holding a toddler on your hip. Now, this is a 15-kilo ball. I've worked with women who eventually get up to 30, 40 kilos, lifting it up onto their shoulder and walking with it. Okay, so that is what I call the evolution of strength. Evolving your exercises from those basic foundational movements through to more complex movements as time goes on is key. But here's where a lot of personal trainers and a lot of programs get it wrong, is they go straight to this fun stuff in the background. Chances are, if you've done some kind of program before at a F45 or at a boutique gym, then what you've probably used are these objects in the background more than you have used those barbells. The problem with that is because you're using these things here and not barbells, you're never learning really great movement patterns. And you're taking bad movement patterns that you already have and applying it to this gear here, rather than going back to basics, really learning those fundamental movement patterns and then evolving them from a new perspective or a new place. And that is why the FitMum method exercise program that we've put together is so core to building a strong and capable mama. They're very basic moves, but those basic moves are your foundational base. If you work on them for 6 to 12 months and you increase your strength in that time, when you come back to using this stuff in the background, you're going to notice a massive difference. And when you're out in everyday life, you're going to notice this even more significant difference.